Welcome everyone, so nice to see you all. My name is 𝘿𝙧𝙪𝙚𝙪𝙧𝙤𝙙. I'm the chairman of Chemfriendly Norge, Chemfriendly Norway. And for those of us who haven't heard of us before, we are... Hva er helsefaglig på engelsk, Tori?
Healthcare.
Healthcare?
We are a member organization for all queers affected by illegal drug use. So both queer drug users and others. And the way we work is founded in health, science, and practice. Yeah. For those who were on the previous debate about how to forebygge, prevent drug use, there was somebody talking about that we need to talk about drugs, and in Chemfriendly we talk about illegal drug use. So we want to destigmatize talking about illegal drug use. We want to make a safe conversation about illegal drug use. And one of the ways we're doing this is, for example, a new campaign that we have. As per now, unfortunately, it's only in Norwegian. It's called Sex, Rus og Samtykke, Sex, Drugs and Consent, which is done also together with Sex and Samfunn, who had the previous debate, where we teach the audience who choose to mix sex and drugs how to do this in ways that prevent the risk of rape and other, and how you so the readers can be more mindful of what challenges around consent can happen when you mix sex and drugs. But today we're here to talk about raves, drugs, and neurodivergence, which I'm so proud of our harm reduction nurse, Tori, which has written an article on the topic, which will soon be available on our website. And we would love a dialogue, so if you here in the audience are having questions or comments, please show it. We love an open and engaged discussion with you. So don't be afraid of asking questions. And then I think you can present yourself.
I can.
Yeah.
And you know, if you don't want to raise your voice in an audience, find a piece of paper and write it down, and I can read the questions. I really love reflective and just to share. You know, this is not based on science or research. This is based on a long life. Yeah. I'm Tori. I am 50 years old. And I'm an ADHDer, and I am a harm reduction nurse at the supervised consumption room in Oslo. And so harm reduction is where my heart burns hardest and fiercest, I would say. Yes, that's me. And I've worked with that since 2009 or something. So, yeah, and they can't get rid of me. And I'm a good harm reduction nurse. I'm proud of that. Yeah.
And I'm very grateful that we're having you on our team, Chemfriendly. So I would just like to start with a question. In our invite on Instagram, you wrote that raves, drugs, and neurodivergence are 3 topics that define you. Please tell us a little bit more about that.
All right. I love to talk about myself, so this is the easy part. I moved to Italy when I was 19 years old. And I pretty quickly started to work as a disco dancer, on cubes, like in discos. I didn't speak Italian. And from barely having seen a joint, you know, I fell into this club scene, but I was extremely insecure, and I didn't understand people, and so I used a lot of drugs, you know, and I had a lot of sex, and I would never have been without it, but at the same time, yeah, it defines me, that start, in a way. And sometimes, though, not like the club scenes where I was working, but, you know, I also ended up in raves, in caves, and after hours, and with a different kind set of people. And there, I think now, when I think back on it, there I felt home, in a way. I felt more safe, and I felt more secure, and people took care of each other. Yeah, it was different. Yeah, so that was raves in the past. And then now being a volunteer with Chemfriendly and also with 𝙬𝙧𝙪𝙧𝙤𝙙𝙬𝙧𝙪𝙧𝙤𝙬 and Safe Space, I've rediscovered raves. And I've found that environment that actually attracted me. And I find I've been reflecting on being extremely safe and caring very often, at least, you know. And it's dress up for grown-ups. It's great, you know. Come as you are, or come just normal. That's okay too. Yeah, so that was the raves. I've also talked about the drugs. Past, I'm an original raver. I've tried it all. And this is not like a, yay, do drugs. But it's a big difference with doing drugs when you are insecure and scared and you're masking who you are and doing drugs with friends and with people you're feel safe with and who gives you good advice on how much and how often or ikke tenk på det, jeg har det. Don't think about it, you know. Well, I got you, yeah. And then the neurodivergences. I was insecure when I was 19 and when I was 30 because I didn't have a diagnosis. Yes. Yeah. I got that in 2013 after having on my way to have a huge alcohol problem, you know. And then I got that and I understood, oh, not everyone has 7, like an autobahn, 7 lanes in their head. And I thought everyone was like that, and I couldn't understand why no one understood me. And I got that diagnosed, and I've learned how to live with that one. I learned what that is, what it means for me. And then last year, Andres or Chemfriendly asked, they wanted to have an article, and someone said, oh, can you write something about neurodivergences and drugs? And I was like, yeah, easy, harm reduction, and I've got ADHD. And then I just, boom, into this different way of understanding my diagnosis, of understanding people around me. So this is my new hyperfocus. I'm thinking about it all the time, and because I'm curious. Yeah. So, and being a nurse, working with people with diagnosis, thinking about it as medical problems, instead of this is who you are, and it's just okay. That I'm embracing that way of thinking, you know, very much. And maybe there is like a shift. It's a start on a shift, I think, towards seeing people, hopefully, you know, that if you're an artist, it's nothing, it wasn't vaccines or amount of sugar. Amount of sugar is bad anyway, everybody can get hyped for that. So, yeah, anyway, so I am, right now, neuro-variety curious, would I say? Yes. And I've been thinking a lot about how the neurotypical social construct is what makes neurodivergent people feeling on the outside. Because we don't fit in. It's not catered. And I do recognize as well that some people, artists, do have needs for help. And I recognize that I should have a secretary. That would have been very good for bills and things I'm supposed to do. Yeah, it's hard for me. So yeah, that's why they define me, these 3 topics. Yeah. And I find that when I speak openly about drug use, people dare to talk back, to speak with me. And that's... I can be a nurse and have used drugs. And when I tell, that the people on the street, and a lot of them have a neurodivergence, and they are suffering from their neurodivergence. And when I share some of mine, yeah, I tried crack. It's really dangerous, but I can say I've tried it. And, ooh, great, never again, as an adult. Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. To this thing you said, it's not about glorifying drugs. So in Chemfriendly we work on harm reduction, which is about talking about the risks, talking about how dangerous drugs are, but we do acknowledge that drugs or intoxication can have a positive effect in people's life, but also that intoxication can be more than just drugs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of queer literature that points out how dancing can be intoxication. And dancing is some of the things that define rave culture, which we're going to talk more about. But, perfect. So the term neurodivergent, why is it an important term? Because
shifting away from diagnosis, in a way, we're just variations in this neuro-rich world, and but living in the Western world, we are squared in to boxes on how to present neurotypical people. I don't know, because I'm not neurotypical, but I feel that, yeah, but can't you just, you can just do it, my mom says. Skjerp deg. It's not about that. No, it's not about the hating the sound of her radio in the morning because my brain is still naked. I haven't put on my filters yet. Yeah.
It's kind of like, instead of saying that person is a problem kid in school, it's more about saying how can we make the school a better place for that person, for example. Because people are diverse, and it's not about somebody being a problem, but we're built differently. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yes, but since school system is structured, yeah, but it's structured around people who are able to, get up in the morning and be at work at the right time, and or who are able to sit in a meeting and actually understand what the other people are saying, even if you're not particularly good at reading body language or face, being. I think both neurodivergent people are they're normally extremely. It's rarely an agenda. You rarely position yourself to achieve something. you know, because it's not in the mindset. But honest and direct, and so it's and we don't always understand the language that people are speaking to us, and the subtle signs.
And what do you say about not handling that sound in the morning because your brain, like I see in more and more queer spaces, instead of clapping, we do like this, for example, because some people have sound sensitivities, for example. So let's go over to Rave and neurodivergence. So, in your opinion, after you've spoken to neurodivergent people, to other, you've been on an international conference where this was also a topic, neurodivergence and drugs. How common is it in rave communities with neurodivergent people? Do they attract to these communities? Do neurodivergent people typically to be found in rave communities?
I think a lot of subcultures. It's only I don't know anything about black metal, so it doesn't tick my box. But I think or kink, or you know, every subculture attracts, because subcultures very often are more accepting. They're more open. It's totally okay to be a nerd, you know. So I think in the rave culture, it's a lot of neurodiverse people, and rave cultures. They're also, you know, because the music and the repetition and the lights and the sounds, they're also really good at, you know, making different spaces where you can land, or meditation, or walk barefoot in the woods, or, you know, so it's, you can be at a rave or at Monument and never be in center front stage, on the main stage, because you can be so many other places and you're still at a rave, you know. You don't need to stand in the front there. I can't in the dark. I get so scared. You know, so, but I can sit a little bit further back. I can observe, and it's very little alcohol. And alcohol makes people mean, often. So, yeah, less at least. Not to the same extent that Oslo nightlife is. Yeah.
But the people that you've spoken to, when you're talking about drugs, is there any types of drugs that they would prefer, other than alcohol, or do some of them also go to raves and not do drugs? And why would they choose either another kind of drug or not doing drugs at these points?
People who are volunteer at a safe space, I think that's a bunch of autists and nerds, and not all of them do drugs, but they love all the way down to the molecular level of building of MDMA. You know, they're just like, whoa. And I think you need to be a little bit in some direction just to go there. That is hyper focused. That is boring. You know, and I think that's yeah, it's a lot of ADHD and autism, and obviously also other, you know, either visible or like, hva heter det for? Man så sitter I rullestol, liksom.
Other varieties of humans there?
It's okay. One leg, 2 legs. You know, it's open and including in many ways. And I think, and of course, there's a lot of also probably neurotypical, but they often get singled out. You know, they're a bunch by themselves, and then they do drugs and they dance for 12 hours. Yeah, yeah.
To talk about the nerd. Like typically, when we do harm reduction work, there are, and let's say we're at a party, and we give out harm reduction, like user equipment for snorting. We are doing very good success by giving out these little packages of magnesium that prevents cramps, muscle cramps, for when people do MDMA, or vitamin C that prevents neurodamages. That can be a byeffect of doing some of these drugs. Very popular, and people typically know what it is. They're like, sometimes I want to recruit the people that I'm handing these out to because they know these things more than I do. But I sometimes get an impression that if you have a group of druggies, there's this one person that knows a lot about drugs, that knows a lot about risk, as you said, down to the molecular level, and that typically has this protective role, that this person tells the other people the good advices on harm reduction. Would that typically, you think, be that neurodiverse person?
In my experience, yes, it is. Also because I think many neurodiverse people are, I'm talking about drug use for grown-ups here, not drug use as masking or as putting a filter on problems. People are very, very reflected on how much when, one of the guys I talked to, he said, I've downloaded this app. So if I take this, then I start the timer. And then I know that I can't do more of that until, the effect of ket or, so I don't overdose, I don't, I took, LSD earlier, so I'm not going to have, I'm not going to add on with some other, so they have, this lasts this long. This lasts this long. If you are going to do this, don't do this. Please don't do, alcohol, drink alcohol at the same time. People really reflected about this, and they do get like a little bit of this expert role among friends, where they are trusted to give good advice, and they give the advice without any prejudice. It's an acceptance, and then but this is how you do it safely. And do you want me to keep an eye out for you? Then I'll just wait, taking mine.
Awesome.
It's a lot of that.
In the English language, you have drugs is both medicine and recreational drugs, but in Norwegian it's like two different words. So it's
drugs and substances.
Yeah. So as you say, in Chemfriendly we have ethical guidelines where we say that we acknowledge that intoxication, doesn't need to be drugs, can have a positive effect in people's life. For example, self-medication to function. So for in our organization, if you need to take that joint and before you do something for us, that's okay. Just don't be visibly intoxicating with it. That can turn negative on yourself and the organization. So we try to navigate that. So I think that's very interesting. Do you think, you're talking about neurodiverse people who use, we're speaking about neurodiverse people who can either use medicinal drugs or illegal drugs as a form of medication to function, to deal with the symptoms, but also to, be more social, etc., etc. But do you think neurotypical people go to raves and do drugs to become more neurodiverse?
Of course. Of course. It's why do you take LSD and mushroom? It's or shrooms or any, you know, it's to expand your mind in a way. I do believe that neurodiverse people, they're more queers in the neurodiverse universe. Because people are more elastic, more fluid in like mentally. It's not so square, you know. You can fit in many directions. So I do believe that. I do believe that. I've reflected that I thought I liked cocaine a lot, and for a period, and I've reflected on, yeah, because then everybody became like me, you know. It's like, oh, wow, I feel like everyone else. Oh, they are like me. So I do think that, yes, whether it's cocaine or psychedelics or yeah.
Cool. Tell us a little bit more about the conversations with your informants.
Yeah.
Who were they? How was when you're writing an article for us? How do you come in contact with them? Who are they?
It's not easy to get in contact with people when it's about illegal drugs. So, well, through Safe Space, of course, and I put up a Slack on Foreningen 𝘿𝙧𝙪𝙧𝙪𝙧𝙤𝙪, on the message board there, and I got contacted by 2 people. And then I'm curious about people, and I'm not insecure anymore, so I chat to people, and then if I open up about that where I work, it's already, oh, I work with drugs. Then people, you know, and as long as I receive it without judgment, people are opening up, people talk about it. And so, you know, it's not research. It's, for me, I would love someone to do great research on this, because all research on either autism or ADHD and drugs are ADHD, smoke a joint and you get psychosis. It's war on drugs research. You know, it's scare tactic research. There's a little bit on autism now lately from somewhere in England, which is good research. Better, at least, on autism and drug use, and that's good. So I have the ideas. I need someone to have the more focused and do the research, because if I'm going to do it, it will never happen. You had any question?
Are you planning on doing more interviews or conversations?
Yes, please contact me. Huh?
How?
Well, everyone I'm talking to it's of course anonymous. One, he was so scared of being out in the world, so I sent him the question and he wrote elaborate answers back. And that was on, I think, Signal. You can do or send me an email, or and we'll put it up on Chemfriendly's site.
We're on.
But totally anonymous. If there's questions that you don't want to ask, if you answer, because I ask about sex as well, since it's Chemfriendly and it's about sex. And if there's something you don't want to answer, you can just skip it. And I learn a lot from it, because one guy said, I don't understand what you're asking about. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're autist and I am ADHD, and now I'm asking something that, you know, so yeah, it's a work in progress. It's yes.
Yeah. So have two questions, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is, like, you mentioned having dealt with addiction, and you've kind of delved into, like, using drugs for masking. And do you have any advice for, like, people experiencing the space for the first time and, like, finding the middle ground between, like, using drugs for masking and partying and having fun, and needing drugs for masking? And, like, how do you recognize that in your friends? How can you pick up on that? And my second question was, do you have any experience with people with other neurodiversities, except from autism and ADHD, like how drugs can be used in treatment of CPTSD or DID or those kind of things?
Can I just first repeat the question for the microphone and
Mhm.
video? So the question was, you talked about neurodivergent people coming to the rave scene, doing drugs for masking. Could you please, what do you meant by masking?
Or unmasking. Sorry, I used the wrong word. Unmasking.
So kind of like to fit in, to be social.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then if you have advice for that first time raver who has the need to use drugs to be in these spaces and be social, etc., and also like to balance it with having drugs for fun, etc. Was that a right way of
Yeah, like how do you find a balance between, like, using drugs to unmask and have fun, and needing drugs to unmask?
Yeah, so like in the
first. Avoid addiction.
Yes, because that's what they talked about also in the previous debate, that if you need drugs to do something, it can also be a risk for addiction. So how to find that balance? So please.
The problem with illegal substances, you know, is that a lot of people are scared of talking about it, to acknowledge, and then we can't say then it will normally become a problem before it gets before some people around you understand it. You know, masking is putting on this thing to fit into the neurotypical world, so I don't think, you know, an autist woke up one day and said, "Oh, I want to go to a rave." I think you maybe fall into, you find friends. That's what I say. I was this very lonely young man, and you know, I said, "Yeah, but try out subcultures. You know, if you don't like rave music, do you like any other music? Do you?" Or role play, or I don't, you know, just find nerds that are nerdy on something that you like yourself, and at that point, I think you can find an environment or like a crowd where drug use for masking or self-medication gets less and less. You know, because you find your people. Was that an answer? Yeah?
And the second, just to repeat the question, the second question was, do you have knowledge about other neurodivergent groups other than autism and ADHD? For example, PTSD?
Well, PTSD is normally something, it's a diagnosis you get because you have suffered trauma. You know? Yeah. So I did only ADHD and autism because it's huge, and the definition of neurodivergence is huge. You know, someone says that, yeah, or even people who have meditated a lot or done a lot of psychedelic can be considered neurodivergent because their brain, it changes, and you know, meditation is totally there's no substances involved in that, but research shows that it expands the mind also permanently. Meditation, like hardcore. But I would really like, you know, also to look into Tourette's, some epilepsies you are born with actually, and other epilepsy you might get them from trauma or something, but and then you are neurodivergent, even if it's not like I'm born like this. I'm not. This is not a diagnosis. It's not wrong with me. Yeah. So, yeah.
If I may, on the topic of how to give advice to neurodiverse people, and this is also a question to the audience, because sometimes when I read, for example, Foreningen Tryggere, Association for Safer Drug Policy, drug information, and you can use the same criticism as ours. It's like, oh, this is a long text. I don't think that. And in my view, I've always thought that if you do drugs, you're kind of like ADHD. You're doing drugs because you have ADHD, or you become a little bit of ADHD because of the stimulant drugs. Maybe talking about basing it on my own experiences. But but now I kind of understand that maybe it's another form of neurodivergence that explains why there are long articles for the drug nerds. But I still think that we use, for example, information videos to catch up those who can't read the long text with humor and visuals and stuff. So what's a good way of conveying a good harm reduction advice to neurodiverse people? And this is also a question for Tori and for the audience.
Dyslexia is also a neurodivergent, and I've had I've had a lot of, through my work, explaining how the brain works and this and the transmitters, and I was like, okay, heard it now, forgotten later. And so Foreningen Tryggere, they actually have some, or Foreningen Tryggere Ungdom, the youth part, they have these extremely cute and very nerdy little movies, on the different drugs, where it's explained down to molecular level, and oh, ding! I suddenly understood it. It's sticking almost, but it's not that important for me to know this attached to this and this opens that in the brain. But so there is knowledge down to microcosm. Yeah.
So
did I answer now, or did I speak?
No, you said that there was some information that when some healthcare professional gave it to you, you just, forgot it. Mm-hmm. But when you saw this movie, so something about that movie conveyed it, even a difficult, complicated theme that made it stick. So
yeah, and I want when this article finishes, it just grows and grows, because I just discover new things. It might be more than one, and hopefully a lot of people want to talk to me, and I can make more, and I can but what did you ask?
A good way of conveying harm reduction advice to neurodivergent people.
I think you need to ask neurodivergent people who are having with lived experience of using drugs, both as self-medication and also as recreational and something that enhances their life. I believe that, and then you need to talk to people, and one guy I talked to, because one of the questions I ask is, I need to translate it now. Have you experienced that drugs have different effects on you than on the people around you? And when and how did you understand that your reaction was totally, the opposite? And one guy, he said, once when I was young, I tried heroin. And I wanted to go and dance, and I was like, yeah, I have never tried heroin, but I've had anesthesia, and I wanted to go and dance when I woke up. The woman next to me, she was vomiting all over the place, and she was like, ugh, and I was like, party? So, yeah, there are adverse effects, And it was the same person. He said also that he couldn't do. Maybe that was heroin as well. But it was one drug he couldn't do because everyone else got like really almost zoned out, and he got horny. This was in the relation to sex, you know, and he said, yeah, I got horny, and at a point I realized that I was almost not raping, but I was touching people that I was beyond consent. And that was just such a... The honesty of sharing that, it's quite beautiful, and I think that's why I love neurodivergent people so much, because if you ask, you normally get straight answers, and that is, and you can trust that the answers are straight. Yeah, I think so.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I think what's interesting, at least like if I summarize some of the points that were said today, I think that there's an interesting use of not just language because we're trying to speak in English, but also these definitions between like what is use and what is abuse. On top of like, I know that, you know, harm reduction on the website, you guys talk a lot about like preventing overdoses or preventing something being, let's say, maybe we can call it an adult use of drugs, meaning mindful and understanding of what you're doing versus maybe self-medication or masking or using it as a, I would call it maybe sometimes self-harm, right? If we're thinking of this. So I think it's interesting, and maybe it's useful for us to also have a, I don't want to say base definitions, but maybe some universal definitions for what we mean by these things. Because I think even in the way that we ask questions, sometimes we change these things around a little. Like you said, what does masking mean to us? And what does masking mean to us when drugs are involved? Because I think and please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I kind of understood from what you're saying is that people who feel othered maybe are more looking for places to feel like themselves and feel safe. And this is the maybe part, but like maybe they're also more likely to self-medicate because they are neurodivergent and more likely to do either legal or illegal drugs to feel either something or normal or feel like part of something. And when you are in those situations, they're not always safe. You may not know how to safely administer or take these things. And maybe that's what harm reduction is kind of about, right? Like, is that kind of making this
Well, if I can explain what harm reduction is for us, and this is also based on like kind of like international harm reduction standards, or do you want to take that definition?
Harm reduction is huge. Harm reduction is about being humane and recognizing that either if it's like native minorities or any kind of minority, that you are more susceptible. Thank you. To be vulnerable to the harmful effects of drugs, you know, because you are already carrying some kind of trauma or some kind of exclusion. Many have multiple. They're part of more than one minority, you know, queer and neurodivergent and sex worker and not ethnically super white, you know, so there's a mix of them there. And so harm reduction is about that, and harm reduction is all the way from, you know, discussing whether it's right to place a mainline if someone is injecting heroin and they have a lot of wounds, you know, to let that is harm reduction. But harm reduction is also recognizing women as a minority in drugs, you know, narco-feminism, and it's the huge in between. What
I usually say when I give a lecture on behalf of Chemfriendly is kind of like, it's the principle which is what you say, the humanism, nothing about us without us, democratic involvement, recognizing minorities, recognizing women, recognizing that the drug user in themselves needs to be part of the solution, and then down to the practical method, which is everything from how to teach people how they can do drugs in safer ways to drug rehabilitation services. There's no either or. We're just different drug users at different places on a scale. Sometimes they need treatment, other times they need a safer drug.